All right, let me see if we're on Facebook. Okay. And hang on. Oh, look at this. I was able to stick it right on the. Let me just refresh. Oh. Here we are. Okay, we're good to go. Whenever we want to start.
Whenever you want me to start, let me know.
All right. Wow, that was easy. Every time I learn something new. Oh, let's see how we're doing. Oh, I got 24 people. All right. Well, let's give us a few more minutes. It's good to see everybody. Just preliminarily, welcome to the Master Gardeners Saturday gardening class. And we're glad to have you. As I said in the chat, put your questions in the chat box, and when the presentation is over, we'll take the questions. Or if there's something that's particularly relevant, I might, and Fran has sort of come to a pause. We might do something, Fran, after the first half, the first part.
Oh, that's fine.
And then we'll do the second part.
That's
so
fine.
Just put your questions in the chat. And when we start, I'll just ask everybody to mute. But you can unmute now if you want and just say hello. Yeah. Great. And I'll put it in the chat, but just so everybody knows, all of our Saturday class videos are available for viewing at your leisure on our Facebook page. You just have to scroll down the timeline to get to all of them, but starting in January, they're there. All right, let's say we're probably ready to start in just a sec. Great to see everybody. And all right, shall we go?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. Okay, right. Welcome everybody. Please mute. And I'd like to welcome Fran Geier, who's a longtime Master Gardener and our certification officer, and a passionate shade gardener. Fran moved here from the Chicago area and has been shade gardening wherever she lives. So she is going to show us just shade gardening in your own backyard and woodland type shade gardening. So enjoy, take notes, and put your questions in the chat. Fran, it's all yours.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending. I'm trying to get my cursor. Okay, so we're all talking about shade-seeking plants. Of course, I have to throw a couple of kitty and dogs in there because I'm a big animal lover, but we're always out seeking shade. I'm a shade seeker because when I go for my walks, I want to look for shade in the mornings. When I golf, I like to look for shade when I'm not hitting the ball. So it gets hot here, as we all know, and shade is something that we are very grateful for in many times of the year. So benefits of shade gardens. I think that they're very calming. They're relaxing. Of course, the temperatures are much cooler when you're under the canopy of trees, and it makes it easier to do your gardening when you're feeling a little bit less hot. There is a lot more moisture in the ground because it doesn't evaporate as rapidly. Weed seed germination is poor. So when you have plants that are very close together and the moisture, weed seeds don't germinate as easily. There are a few weeds that do like shade, and that one being the creeping Charlie, but we won't go there this morning. The less maintenance, since the shade-loving plants require less work. You're not having to deadhead them as much. And then a lot of people have a misconception that there's no color in shade gardening, and I'm going to prove them wrong this morning. Light definition. So what is shade, and what does it mean when it's part shade or full shade? So we know, most of us know, that full sun is 6 hours or more of direct sun in the summer. And then there's light shade that's 3 to 5 hours, partial shade, 2 hours of direct sun. And then we have full shade for 1 hour of direct sun each day, or dappled through the trees. There's also another one I didn't put down here, which is they call dense shade. And that's totally shade. It's usually between, hard ground that you can't really do much with. Nothing really grows there. You're typically putting stones or mulch there because it's too difficult to grow. There are, some hostas that will grow there. So we have tags that come with our plants that kind of give us an idea what kind of light we need, how much moisture the plant needs, the height, what the bloom time is, how much it's going to spread. And I call that the cliff notes of the plant. So a lot of times you'll see the word sun and part shade. And whenever you see that, or even part shade sun, the first one that's listed, for example, in this case, sun, that means it really grows best in the sun, but it will tolerate some shade. So a lot of times when I was first gardening, I was always trying to stretch that. So I would take a sun plant that says sun, and I would try to put it in the shade. And it really didn't do as well as it could have done if I would have just gone out and really investigated shade plants. I'm going to start talking about hostas because I think everybody is familiar with hostas, and that's pretty much I call it the queen of shade plants. When people think of shade, I think they really think of hostas as being the go-to. The hostas are native to Japan, Korea, China. They came to the United States the mid-1800s. There's hundreds of species and thousands of cultivars. My husband's cousin, who lives in Iowa, they had a farm up there, a sheep farm. They're really into hostas. They were part of the U.S. Hosta Society and their local hosta chapter. And they have 1,100 varieties on their property. And I'll show you a picture of some of that soon. But so you could do, you can go crazy. You can go crazy with hostas for sure. There's so many to choose from. They're, of course, growing for their foliage, not so much the flower, but I'll show you a few instances where the flowers are quite beautiful. So planting and growing hostas, they really like shade. Some can handle sun. The lighter colored leaves can handle sun and actually look better and do better in the sun, some sun. We're not talking full sun. Of course, in shade plants, we always want the ground to be fertile and organic. They do die back in the winter. So, and then the blue, green, and variated do much better in the deeper shade than the lighter ones. This one here is Queen of the Sea. This is a new variety for 2021. I really didn't realize that there's different varieties for each year that come out, but I guess these are very easy to hybridize, so it's common that would happen. So here's the hosta flower. They come in two colors, white or lavender, and you can see this one's quite beautiful. It's called August Lily, and this one is very fragrant too. It smells like a gardenia. These flowers only last for about 3 weeks, but the individual flower lasts for 1 day. So you want to remove the stems once the flowers fade. When I was first married, we moved into our first house. Our neighbor across the street, he was retired. He had the same hosta plant all around the perimeter of his home, and he would immediately cut off the flowering stems. He was really interested in the foliage, and that's what I think a lot of people are. But I think the flower is pretty. And because the flower does attract bees, hummingbirds, and butterflies. So I would always keep the flower on my hostas. This is a royal standard. I put this one in because this is one of the bigger white flowers that you could see. And when you get this in a mass, it's very beautiful. I mean, the white flowers are very large, and you can't really tell in this picture, but they're very, very beautiful. So best practices of growing hostas, you want to group, and this is the first three are really true in any type of planting that you're going to do. You're going to group an odd number, 3 to 5, etc. You don't want to mix too many types, or you don't want to have like one of each everywhere. You just don't see the continuity of it. And do not overcrowd, because these can be very big, and you want to give the plant a lot of space. Some of the rules that the hosta people feel that you don't want to put the white variegated next to the solid gold, because they're going to compete for attention. You're going to need to divide these every 4 to 5 years, preferably in the spring when they start to emerge. So when you do that, you're going to have to dig around the whole plant, and then you're going to lift it, the whole plant, out of the ground, and you're going to break it apart. And when you put it back in, when you replant, you're going to take at least 3 sets of the shoots coming out of the crown to replant that. And you'll be putting it back in, and of course, watering it very well. And you'll always have enough to share with your friends. The plants keep well, very watered, and they really do need to keep moist throughout the year. And this is another 2021 plant, Eclipse of the Heart. As I said, they do die back, but as the fall comes, they do change into a beautiful orangish colors. Trimming leaves after the first frost is recommended, because we don't want them to wilt and get soggy, and then it could bring in pests such as slugs or cutworms. You want to trim these back to the ground. If they're healthy, you can go ahead and put them in your compost pile. And during the year, sometimes our leaves get damaged through maybe rain or whatever. And so through the year, just want to look at those leaves and kind of trim them off and keep the plant looking healthy. So one of the biggest pests, and I have a lot of friends that tell me that their deer are always eating their hostas. And so hostas for deer is like candy for us. They just love hostas. And this cousin I was mentioning that has the 1,100 varieties at their farm, he recommends a product called Milorganite. And what it is, it's made out of sewage, but it's also a low-grade fertilizer with a bad smell. Now, the smell is not going to affect us. We're not going to avoid our gardens because of spreading this around the plants, but it is going to deter the deer. Another thing that he uses is a fishing line, and you don't have to put the fishing line all around the garden. You really just need to put it in the entry where you enter the garden, or maybe you have an exit of the garden. Deer are a lot like us. They're not going to be walking through the plants. They're going to take the path of least resistance and use the path. Another great idea is using a motion sensor light in the evenings. That light has to stay on for 3 minutes to get them to mosey on away. And this is one that's been on the internet, and I don't know if it works or not. I've never heard of anybody trying it, but I thought I'd put it in there. Coyote urine repellent. So if you do go to the internet, there's a whole bunch of ideas about how to get deers out of the area. Now, if you're having a situation where this is just overwhelming, where you cannot get rid of these deer, you might want to consider planting something other than hosta. And we'll talk about many other plants that would fit the bill. Another one that people talk about a lot, and I have not had experience with this, are slugs. But before we start talking about how to kill slugs, I just want to bring out the fact that slugs are very beneficial. They eat the decaying organic matter, like of the rotting plants, fruit, animal droppings, etc. So they do have a purpose. A lot of people tell you that using crushed eggshells is the way to go. I mean, I don't know how many eggs you need to collect eggshells, but a couple of problems with that is that eggshells absorb moisture. And the idea is that these sharp edges of the eggshell is going to harm the slug as they try to go over them to get to the plant. So there's a website out there and YouTube videos called Myth Gardeners, and they have some really interesting videos. And they did an experiment using the crushed eggshells around the plants, and you could see the video, which was a time-lapsed. And you just see these slugs just winging over the eggshells, no problem, eating the plant, taking off. So it didn't look very successful. Another myth is the beer is attracted. They are attracted by the yeast of the beer. And the same thing, they've done videos and experiments with that. And the video that I saw, the slugs would come up to the trough, I call it, of the beer, take a sip and take off. And I guess the bottom line is, to save your good beer for yourself. What is recommended is there is a product called Organic Bait Sluggo. And once the evening temperatures reach about 50 to 60 degrees, you want to start baiting them. This product does have iron and phosphorus in it, which also then goes back into the ground and helps the ground. Another way is to spray the slugs with 70% water and 30% ammonia, and that will pretty much disintegrate the smaller slugs. There are out there slug-resistant hostas. They do have thicker and tougher leaves on them and makes it a little more difficult for them to be eaten by the slugs and sometimes the snails. I talked about alternative plants. So slugs do not like ferns. They don't like Hukertia, and they don't like hydrangea. So those are some alternatives to planting the hostas, and we'll talk about others as we go along. So this is my husband's cousin's garden at their sheep farm. All 1100. This is just one section of the plantings that they have for their hostas, but I call this hosta love because they certainly do love their hostas. And you could see that there is a repeat pattern in the plants that they have put in on this particular hillside. And very pretty area. Mass planting is always a beautiful look. A couple of years ago, they turned like 75 years old, so they decided to downsize, and they went to a townhome, and they had to make a decision, and they brought 200 varieties of hostas with them. And these are some of them that they planted on the side of their yard, of their house. And you can see there still is a pattern of color repeated down the row here. I don't know if you could see, but this is on the side. This is a retention wall, and they have the property goes way up the hill, and they have many, many more hostas planted there. So, they're in Iowa. They can get away with planting a lot of their hostas in the sun, where we don't have that luxury. Okay, I'm going to start talking about companion plants that go well with hostas. Excuse me. This is over here, the picture is from a garden of another master gardener. It says Claire Hetzler, lives up on Signal Mountain. And you could see that she's incorporated ferns along with her hostas. It's very pretty. So ferns are also woodland plants, which we're going to talk about later, but they're great in that they're low maintenance. They love shade. They do need protection from any hot sun. They come in a variety of colors, heights, like hostas do, not as, the Japanese fern has many, many colors in it, for example. You do have to, at times when they get to be very, very large, you do need to divide them in the spring or fall. When you see the clump starts to get a bare center in it, you'll know it's time to divide that fern. And once again, the deer do not like ferns. Here's a couple of ferns that are really pretty. Lady in Red Fern. What's beautiful about this is that the stalk is a different color, and you have the lighter color, different color greens coming in to it. It does colonize the rhizomes. They do, of course, do die back. This one dies back in the winter, and it gets to be about 3 to 5 feet tall. I really like the Christmas fern. This is a leaf of it. It looks like a little sleigh. That's how you can tell that it is a Christmas fern. And like all ferns, it does need to be well drained. This one happens to be more of an evergreen fern, so it does not die back. This is over at Gibbs Gardens. I don't know if you've been there. If you have not, I really recommend that you head over there. It's not too far. It's in Bald Ground, Georgia. But this is a mass planting of broad beech fern, which is another woodland fern. It does spread rapidly, about 1 to 3 feet high. It does die back. But if you had a wooded area where you really wanted to get a pretty ground cover in there, this is the ideal fern for that. Okay, the bleeding heart. This heart, as you can see in the bottom picture of the bloom, looks like the heart bleeding from the white. This is a perennial. It is a woodland flower. It does bloom very early in the spring, probably in the April, May time frame. As you can see from this picture here, it's in its glory, full blowing blooms. And the hosta is still coming out. So by the time these die back, which they will after flowering, the hostas will take over the ferns and other perennials that you have growing. But it does make a beautiful show. Another one that we're familiar with is the coleus. And the picture on the right here, I took at Lowe's this spring, and you can see that this plant has a wide variety of color. It goes from yellows to reds to burgundies. It's a beautiful plant. Not so much growing for the flower. The flower is pretty small, but what I do is always cut back on that flower to give the plant, make it more bushy and healthier. There is a wide variety, and the plant does die back, so you have to replant them every year and make that investment. But they are beautiful, and they give a lot of nice color in contrast to the greens of the hosta or the fern. Another plant that has a wide variety of color is the caladium. And the top picture, 2 pictures here I took at Lowe's, and you could see the wide variety of pretty pinks and greens and burgundies in that plant. These are tropical plants. They are from South and Central America. So they love the hot, they love the humid, not direct sun though, but they like that humid weather. And they're very low maintenance. There's no disease. They really love that hot temperature. So they are tubers. So what you can do is when the fall comes and they start to die back, you can dig them out and keep them in a dark, cool place and then replant them in the spring. So you'll see them start to droop around 60 degrees in the evening. So you can see in the bottom picture, the pretty variety of them companioned with the hosta. This is a stilbe. It comes in a variety of colors. I put the pronunciation because I've noticed that a lot of people pronounce it differently, and I just wanted to get the correct one. I too was pronouncing it incorrectly, so I learned something. These are native to North America and the Far East. Our native plant is called the false goatbeard. It's white, it's showy. There's actually 25 different species of these with a range of colors. You could do a lot with these in introducing color into your shade garden. And they come in different heights, from 2 to 24 inches. And my garden, I have a pretty light lavender one that's probably about 5 inches tall and really acts more as a ground cover. The flowers are more productive and prettier in the morning hours. It has a lot of butterfly attraction. And I have not had to divide mine. They said to divide every 4 years. I've been using more of mine as a ground cover and letting it spread out within the area. So here's a couple of beautiful pictures of how you can introduce the color into the garden with the hostas and the ferns. Hostas and ferns here on both of these pictures. Here's a center point here, really pretty. Okay, the next one is heuchera. And this is a picture of the maple leaf heuchera that is in my garden. I just took that a few weeks ago, and has this pretty dainty flowering that is happening still. It's still going on. So it's a little bit, and you have color in your garden later in the season versus just in the spring. So it's also called coral bell, alum root, and you could also get many varieties with different colors of the leaf. It goes from green to bronze and purple, and these really dainty flowers coming out. Shade and filtered sun, and another one that's not liked by deer or rabbits. So you could really use this too if you're having problems with hostas being damaged. So here's a pretty grouping of a couple of them with the different colors and the pretty dainty flowers on their stems. Here's another example of different colors that you can get these in. Talking about the purple to the yellow, a pretty light burgundy color, and with the hostas. Okay, I think we're all familiar with impatiens and begonias. I call them our old friends because we used them for many, many years. I remember not too long after I moved here, there was a big outbreak of disease with the impatiens, and they were landscapers and our stores were not selling them. And so we were without them, and they're now back being sold the last few years. But this is another one that has a wide variety of color. They are annuals, and some of them will tolerate more sun. So if you were in a sunny, shady area, the butterflies and hummingbirds are very much attracted, especially to the red colors on both of them. The begonia can tolerate more sun, and they stay pretty low to the ground. And they're also great in baskets. And so here's an example of a garden that's using the hostas with the impatiens. They also used hanging basket, just brought in a lot of color into their backyard. So these are annuals, and you would need to replant them each year. This is a garden of another one of our master gardeners, Ashbel. His home was on the garden tour in August, and he had a couple of shade areas I took pictures of. As you could see on the one on the left here, he has his hostas and using the same variety in several spots. He has his focal point with the bird bath. This is a plant we haven't talked about. This is the elephant ear. And this is another plant that can, well, you can get it in different colors and you can get it in different heights. I have a friend who has couple of these that are over they're almost 6 feet tall. In fact, she had a picture not too long ago. You could hardly see her behind it. But this is another one that you can investigate and see if it would fit into your garden. It is sort of a mystery type allure into the garden. And he has a few hanging baskets here. And he has ivy in there. And I am glad that he has the ivy in a basket and not in the ground because they can be very invasive. Here's another, on this side, here's more whimsical. He has the hostas, and he does have a start of a Japanese maple here, a fern down here, heuchera down here. So, it's a beginning garden that's going to flourish and become even more filled in as time goes by. This is Gibbs Garden again in Ball Ground, Georgia. So I just want to give a little shout out again to Gibbs Gardens. So the owner of Gibbs Gardens is Jim Gibbs. He was the president and founder of the Gibbs Landscape Company for 40 years. So he bought this 336 acres. It's the largest residential estate of gardens and ferneries in the nation. He has, besides this garden, he has shade gardens. He has a Japanese garden. He has sun gardens. It's an incredible place, and I really encourage you to go there. It's always great to go and see what other people are doing, especially in professional type gardens. But this is a beautiful example of balanced garden with a focal point of the statue of the little girl and the cat. So you can see behind, he has the ferns growing, the caladiums. This is monkey grass or lily turf. And then the front, they have the begonias. And I'm not a real big fan of monkey grass. It's evergreen. It does have these little spikes of lilac flowers, but it is very invasive. And if you wanted a grass, I would choose sedge or the blue-eyed grass, which is really pretty. And okay, I'm going to start talking about woodland gardens. Are there anything to discuss on the first half of the presentation?
Okay, let me see. There was a question. This is a lot of hostas. How much water would you say a hostas need in the summer?
I think you want to make sure that the ground is moist, stays moist, but you don't want it to be, you want to have good drainage. You don't want it to sit in water.
Mm-hmm. And do you put room between a hosta and a bleeding heart? Beverly Peterson has, I guess your hostas have gotten quite large. Beverly, do you want to unmute and ask your question? If you're here.
Yes, over the years, my hosta has grown really large and the bleeding heart has grown really large. And I noticed this year that they are kind of growing into each other.
Mm-hmm. So how long has your hosta been in there? How long has your hosta been growing in that location?
Oh, I don't know. Time flies.
Okay,
probably
so it might be time.
10 years.
Do you think it's time to maybe dig up and divide?
It probably is. It's a large variety of hosta. It's bigger than my other varieties.
Okay.
And it was given to me, so I don't really know what the name of it is.
Yeah.
But it probably has been, and I did not know until today I should do that. Yeah,
that would be a great thing to do, is divide it and give that other, I'm not sure, and I would have to look this up. I'm not sure about the dividing the bleeding heart or how that works. I've never had that issue because it dies back and I've never had it come back crazy big, but I would investigate that. But I definitely would separate out, dig out the hosta and separate it out.
And is that something to do in the fall or in the spring?
They recommend to do in the spring, but people have done it in the fall.
You do it early enough so that you avoid, get them settled in before the frost.
Right. Yeah, before the frost. A lot of times you'll see them tying up the leaves so they can dig around the plant. Pick the leaves up and then tie a string around it to keep the leaves straight up, so you could easily dig around the whole plant and get it all up.
Okay.
You can.
I don't know what your experience is, Fran, but when I've separated mine in the spring, they can, I guess I haven't done it early enough, but they can look they do well. They don't die off, but they just don't look they look a little scraggly. They look like they're, just
did you do it as soon as they?
I think I probably waited too long.
Yeah, so you have to do it as soon as you see them coming up. As soon as you see the eye coming up through the soil.
Yeah,
it might be easiest then.
I think it's easier. definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Anyway, yeah.
I
Okay.
think the
Thank
soil
you.
is a little easier too to work with, but yeah.
We have a question about caladium bulbs. Would you dry them? Do you put them in any special kind of medium?
I
Or
don't.
okay.
I just put them in a brown paper bag, but
Okay. And put them in your garage?
I put them in my basement, but yeah,
Basement. Yeah.
it's drier.
And then we have a question about in her shady area. This is Maggie Bartlett.
Uh-huh.
Soil is hard and compacted. What's the best way to improve the soil?
Compost, leaf litter, working that in, and that takes a while. It takes time to get that soil. I mean, I moved here and the first time I never heard the word church before until it took me a while to wrap my head around that word. And it's taken us, it took us several years to, work with mulch, compost. I even used mushroom from the mushroom for ladies, the dried up mushroom compost and put that in there. I mean, it just keeps on working the soil. I have a compost pile I bring in and work that in the soil, trying to keep that, up that organic level. That's all I can tell you. It's a long process.
And do you do anything differently under trees, or you're going to talk about that later?
I'm going to talk about trees. I'm going to talk about trees, but
okay, so we'll hold that. All right, is that it? Does anybody else have a question? You can unmute and ask any questions about the hostas and the whatever and what Fran was talking about now. And all right, let's go on then.
Okay, we're going to start talking about woodland gardens. So woodland gardens, they love soil that's high in organic matter. We don't ever want to let the soil dry out. And they like acidic, woodland plants like acidic soil, like 90% of the plants like acidic soil. So you really need to test and make sure that your soil is acidic. If it's a woodland already, if you're have a wooded backyard that was never, that has oaks and hickories, tulip trees, whatever, pine trees, it's pretty sure that it's probably going to be an acidic soil, but you just might want to check it. But if you create your own shade garden by planting trees and giving yourself that canopy to get shade into your yard, you definitely want to check your soil and make sure that the pH is below 7. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. So what I think of a wooden garden is I think of a natural garden utilizing native perennial shade plants. What I want to do, I live in on a wooded lot, and I want to bring that wooded feel into my raised beds that I have. I have some terrace beds because my backyard is pretty steep. It goes straight down. So I had to create 4 terraces so the plants so I could plant. What's great about this garden, these type of gardens, is that in the forest, you could put several different understory trees like redbud, dogwood, and you could do that in the other garden we talked about too. But I'm just talking strictly on what a woodland garden, a pure woodland garden. And then there we have our bushes, and we have our ground cover and our perennials, and above average rainfall. And we do have above average rainfall here in Chattanooga. So I want to talk about trees a little bit, precautions for planting under trees. And that's what, shade gardening, a lot of times we do plant under trees, and because that's what's giving us our shade. And we need to make sure that we protect these trees. Obviously, this is the mainstay of our shade garden, are trees. They're expensive. They're expensive to take down, to have cut down. They're expensive to replace. They take a long time to grow to the maturity that we want them to be. So there's several trees that have very shallow roots, like beeches and dogwoods and maples, magnolias, pin oaks. And any tree that matures, you know, their root system tends to then, as they age, develop on the surface. So what we want to make sure is that as we're planting around these trees, that we don't cut into these roots and then damage the tree, and then we start to have a decline of our precious tree. So one of the things that we want to do is select plants that are smaller, they're seedlings, if we have a big root problem. So that would require digging a very small hole where the roots need to go very deep. And if you have that bare root, you can add a couple of inches of good soil on top, but not any more. And you want to plant, once again, if you do the seedlings, you want to plant a wide variety, a few varieties, but many of them. And the good ones are, you know, great ground covers, which we're going to talk about soon. What we don't want to do is take a tree and pile it with a bunch of mulch around it and suffocate the tree. You don't want to put anything real close to your trunk of the tree, and you don't want to pile it up and smother the roots. So this is called volcano mulching, and it's not really conducive to then growing plants in that mulch. It just it's all bad. So this is something, please don't ever think about doing, is volcano mulching. So this is the way you should do it. You're adding some nice dirt around the tree. You're keeping at least 3 inches away from the trunk. Putting in some leaf mulch is beneficial, some compost, and then that's all helping keep that moist and keeping the tree healthy. Okay. So this is something I pulled off of Pinterest. So you have to be careful because they're, you know, saying this is how you should do it. You should build this big bench around this tree. It looks great now, but soon this tree is going to start dying. It's killing the tree. It's cutting off the oxygen from the surface roots. If you really need to have a bench under a tree, which is great, it's a pretty look, I would just get a standalone bench and put it there. But never put a lot of weight. And the other thing you don't want to do is ever compact the soil around your tree. And a lot of times I worry about when they do, we've had some trees come down. We had a big oak tree several years ago, a big white oak that got struck by lightning. I was very concerned about the people coming in to take the tree down and compacting the soil around the other trees. So we had to, you know, rope off some areas. So I'm going to talk about some of the bushes then that you could plant around. I think we always think about azaleas and rhododendrons. Azaleas is part of the rhododendron family, and that family is rhodo, which is rose, and dendron, which means tree. When you go look at azaleas online, and they all have this poisonous warning. And that, you know, the leaves are poisonous, the roots are poisonous, the trunks, everything's poisonous. We as humans can get very, very sick. Our pets can get sick, but typically not as sick as we would do. I cannot imagine anybody wanting to eat this plant, but that they do have these warnings. And a lot of the woodland plants have warnings about being poisonous, and I am not an herbalist, so I would not even begin to tell anybody how to do anything with these woodland plants. But getting back to the azalea and the rhododendron, they do like dappled shade and the morning sun. Once again, these really like acid soil. So you see it's down to 4.5 to 5.5. You could tell the difference between the rhododendron and the azalea. The rhododendron has much larger flowers and larger balls type, and they bloom later, and most rhododendrons are evergreen, where the azaleas are deciduous. So on these plants, they set their buds by late summer. So my azaleas now have the buds on them that will bloom next spring, next summer. So you don't want to do any pruning at this time. You want to do the pruning as soon as they are finished flowering, and then they'll set the buds after that. So here's another plant that the deer and the rabbits do not really like. And this is a Piedmont azalea. It's also called a mountain azalea, very common around this region, very pretty flower, and makes a striking appearance. This is up at McCoy Farm on Signal Mountain. I took this in May of this year. This is a beautiful rhododendron that they have there as a focal point in their shade garden. I really also encourage you to go up there and see their shade garden. It's very well diversified in plants, with different types of shade plants, and get some great ideas on that. But this plant here is a broadleaf evergreen. It only goes to 5 feet tall, small spread zone. It blooms April and May. It does attract hummingbirds and butterflies, but it makes a stunning appearance in the garden. This is my azalea that I have in my backyard. It's a plum leaf azalea. I took this in July. So you can see this is a later blooming azalea. You can get color from April all the way through July by placing different azaleas or rhododendrons in your yard. This one here is native. It only grows in this area, Georgia and Alabama area. It's one of the rarest azaleas in the United States. It's the latest to bloom, like I said. So if you want color in your shade garden in July, this is the plant to put in there. It's very loved by the swallowtail butterflies and hummingbirds, as you can see by the color of the flower. And then it has this really pretty yellow leaf color in the fall. And I really recommend it. I bought this probably 3 years ago at one of the Wild One symposiums in Chattanooga. This was a picture taken up on Signal Mountain about 4 years ago. We had Master Gardeners had a garden tour up on Signal Mountain, and this was a backyard of one of the participants, and her azaleas in her backyard. These are a couple of other native woodland azaleas. This is the flame azalea that I have in my yard. I bought that 2 years ago, and I just got it to bloom this spring. And this was bloomed in mid-May. I think and it can come in yellow, it can go a darker pink color. I mean, it's just a beautiful plant. And then this is a sweet azalea that blooms in June. So you could see from just a few azaleas that I've showed you that you can get a wide variety of times that these will bloom. This is the rhododendron catawba. It's a large evergreen shrub. It can grow 6 to 10 feet high. It has this beautiful, large purple blooms, late spring, early summer. It prefers part shade, but it does tolerate full shade. Roan Mountain State Park, they have a festival every year in mid-June where these are at their peak. I have not been there, but it is on my list to attend just so I could see these throughout the Roan State Park. This is one that's never thought of very often. This is in my yard. I have several mountain laurels. I think they're beautiful, the light pink and white flowers. They're an evergreen shrub. They love I have it on the edge of the woodland. They love part shade, and they do flower later in the spring. They're not really interested, wildlife doesn't really bother them at all. And I just think it's a pretty plant, and they do spread. I mean, I've have them spreading pretty much in a straight line, one after another, right through on the border of my yard and my neighbor's yard. Once again, there's a Mountain Laurel Festival, and that's the 3rd Saturday in May in Ortberg, Tennessee. So I'm giving you some field trips to take to see some of these beautiful plants. But they're also prevalent in the Cumberland Trail State Parks, the Pickett State Park, and Frozen Head State Park, for example. This is in my backyard. This is the sweet pepper bush plant. I took this in July. So here's another late blooming type shrub. And you can see, I just wanted to zoom in on the flowers on the right side. They do attract bees, and they're low to the ground. they says here that they grow 3 to 6 feet. I don't know if I have a certain variety, but mine has stayed pretty much at 3 feet. The flowers are very fragrant. They do bloom on new growth, and they do bloom for July and August. So it's a long blooming. The fall color is spectacular. It's this really pretty gold color. It does like moisture. It will grow along stream banks, and it also will grow in sun, part shade, or shade. So it's very versatile. And as I said, the honeybees and the bumblebees love it, and the hummingbirds. This is the strawberry bush. It's also Euonymus americanus. It's more commonly known as Hearts of Buston. This is from the garden of Shirley Stewart, master gardener. Right now, it's also blooming over at Enterprise Park, over in, by the Volkswagen plant. You could see them there. It's deciduous, so it's going to lose its leaves, but it's going to turn a really pretty red color in the fall, the leaves as well. It tolerates sun, light sun to full shade, and it also will tolerate a drier soil. The deer do like this one, unfortunately, and the birds love the seeds. But I think it makes a striking shrub, and it doesn't grow too high. It's 6 foot high. This is the American beautyberry bush. This is in my yard. I just took this in September. It does bloom, and what's great about this is, I shouldn't say bloom, it blooms. Tiny, tiny little flowers come out in August, and then the berries come out in September. And you can get this bush in this magenta color or a pretty white color. I love the magenta color. I just think it's striking in the fall. And it does like light shade. Once again, I have this along my driveway going up, and it does spread a little bit. It's not invasive. I've had a couple of other bushes come from that one that have gone into the woods. So it's great. And it can be cut back in the winter to spread out more. I have not chopped mine back in the fall. I just let it go, and I think it's been great. Okay, I'm going to talk about some ground covers. The first one I used to think of as an invasive weed. It is somewhat invasive, and I was always fighting it. I spent a lot of my hours digging out the blue violet. And then I listened to a person talk one day, and she said that, this is a beautiful plant. It does come early, and it does feed the early butterflies, and it's beautiful. And so then I started leaving it here and there to kind of keep it as a ground cover and keep back some of the other weeds that we're trying to get through. It does tolerate most soils. Like I said, it's an early bloomer. March and April. It does bloom for several weeks. It is the only larval food for the fritillary butterflies, so we want to support those. And it's a ground cover. It only gets 3 inches tall. I've never seen it get to 8 inches tall, the clump, but it can, and it does die back with the heat. So then, after July comes, you're not going to really see this plant. Your other plants are then going to take over. So I kind of plant my other plants within the clumps of these, so I know that they're going to die back, and my other plants are then going to show up. Green and gold. This is a nice, thick, dense ground cover. It's evergreen. It likes the moist, acidic soil. Once again, part shade. It does bloom April through June. And then with the cool weather coming in, a lot of times it does bloom again. You'll see not as prolific, but you'll see some blooms coming in like now, September timeframe. It does spread through runners. It is attracted to bees and butterflies, and then songbirds eat the tiny little seeds that come out. But what I really love about this plant, it is very thick and dense, and there's no weeds that come through that plant carpet at all. Wild ginger. This is one that's not used very often. The flower is underneath the leaf. It has this pretty burgundy type flower. The ants like it because it's close to the ground. The ants will crawl in and pollinate and in there. It does like very dense shade to part shade. It's also a host plant for the pipevine swallowtail. And it's great for under trees. This is one that would be doing very well. And it's not fast spreading though. It's not gonna be as fast spreading as the green and gold, for example. And the deer do not like this plant either. Just get some water. Foam flower. This is a very dainty, pretty ground. I use it as a ground cover too. It has a pretty shiny green leaves, light pink, white flowers that come out April to May. It does spread by runners, and it's just really pretty in the garden. The wild geranium. This is an early bloomer too. It's April, May time frame. It does spread through rhizomes. This here in the lower picture, sometimes this plant is called crane's bill, and you can see that the long stem coming out here like a crane's bill. And these are the seeds that will drop and that the will drop and germinate. And this plant can be used as a ground cover. Also, I don't use it as a ground cover. And it does die back a little bit in the summer. Here's the columbine. Also an early bloomer. This one here is a cultivar. This is my garden, the light pink and white. So the cultivars, of course, come in many different colors: lavender and dark purple, white and red, to name a few of the colors. What you don't want to do is to mix those because they'll start changing colors and you won't retain the original colors that you wanted. The bottom one here is our native columbine, the red here. And both of these are heat and drought, cold tolerant, or evergreen. The leaves are very pretty. Spreads by seeds. They'll go to seed. You'll have hundreds of seeds in each plant that can, and they are very easy to spread. So if you want a nice but large area with a lot of color early in the spring, these sets of flowers, and you only need one plant because the seeds will spread and you will get many more. And hummingbirds just love this plant. Just love it. And so does the sphinx moth. This is an example of up at McCoy Farm again, where they have the native columbine growing there. And you can see how pretty it is in the mass planting. This is my backyard. Here, I just want to show you in the front here is the green and gold growing. Hopefully will be spreading out in this area. The wild geranium. And then behind here are the pink and yellow columbine growing across the back part of it. This is a trillium. I have not grown trillium myself, but this is something that after going to Short Springs Natural Area this last spring, that I definitely want to do. This is just, right there at Short Springs, it's in Tullahoma, Tennessee, probably about an hour and a half from Chattanooga. And they have, besides a beautiful waterfall, they have a loop, a hiking loop that you could do called the Wildflower Loop. And on this loop here, there was just a whole side hill of these different color of trilliums growing. And this was on May 1st. You can also see there's some ferns growing in there. And this is the southern red trillium, which you'll only find in that location. It's just beautiful red trillium. Here it is again. Here you'll see that at the Short Springs, here's the trillium growing amongst in the background here. And here you'll see the foam flower growing. It's pretty. So trilliums, the greatest diversity of species is in the southern Appalachian Mountains. There are slow-growing plants. They can take 7 to 10 years to reach flowering size. So of course you don't want to, you want to buy them from a nursery or somebody who's in the business so that you don't have to wait those 7 to 10 years and you could have a plant that's already gone through that maturity. But they are long living plants. They can live up to 25 years. The seedlings do not produce a green leaf during the first season and develops underground. So if you wanted to go see the route, you do have to have a lot of patience. They bloom the last a few weeks during the early spring. They're a dormant plant, needs early spring sun to get them to come out. They do need that warm sun. So that's why they're so early before the trees leaf out. And you want to make sure they are mulched with leaf litter. So this is a type of plant that once you put it somewhere, you want to leave it there. It does not do well to be dug up and transplanted. Wood flax. This is a pretty early spring flower too, blooms April through May. It can spread up to 24 inches. It does spread slowly by rhizomes and likes the moist soil. It's a really pretty color and it really gives a lot of color to the spring garden. So here it is. We're up at McCoy Farm again at their shade garden. So we'll see the wood flax here in the foreground and then the foam flower blooming here at the same time. This little pretty plant here that we'll talk about next is the wood poppy, and that will be coming out right after, which is a pretty yellow flower, but this is a really pretty shade garden. And here's the celadon poppy. It's a really pretty yellow flower. This one's Shirley Stewart's garden again, and the flower, when you look at it, it almost has an effervescent look to it. It's very shiny and it's low growing. It only grows 1.5 feet tall. Unusual, it produces pollen, but no nectar. It does bloom April through June. Prefers sun in the early spring before the trees leaf out and then a dappled shade. The flowers will turn into this fuzzy, attractive seed pod that will hang down, and that is the seeds are then released by the midsummer. The sap on this is an orangish yellow, and it is toxic to animals, but I can imagine. So you're not going to have a lot of pests or animals going after that plant. Indian pink, one of the favorites. It's a herbaceous perennial. It loves the moist wood habitat, grows to about 12 inches to 18 inches, and it will spread. It does bloom a little bit later, so you have some color going into May, June timeframe. Of course, as you could tell with that bright red, it's definitely going to be loved by hummingbirds. So this is in my backyard, and this was probably early June when I took this picture. But I started out with 2 plants a couple of years ago, and it has spread, and it's just a really pretty plant to see in the early summer. This is a plant that's not used very often. I love it. It's tassel rue. It's also called Carolina bugbane, false bugbane. Once again, this one is a later bloomer too. So you can get some more color into your shade garden later in the season. It blooms July and August. It's a higher, it goes to 36 inches. It does spread by rhizomes and seeds. So this is the flower, which is very pretty. And this is in the spring. This is the plant. These are the leaves, which are just gorgeous and they're unusual. This here in the background, which we'll talk about, is a Solomon seal that's blooming. And then once again, the pink combines. And this is a Virginia creeper, which I typically pull out. I really don't like Virginia creeper in that it creeps too much. Spiderwort has pretty purple flowers. You can get them in light to dark purple. This once again is at Short Springs Natural Area on their wildflower walk. It gets to be about 2 feet high. It does bloom early spring, but it has a long blooming period. The flowers only bloom once, something like a daylily, and but they, continuously coming to bloom. It does deadheading. You can deadhead, and then it will encourage more flowering to occur. This is a pretty plant. Solomon seal, a very early bloomer. It does spread by rhizomes, small white flowers that kind of hang under the leaflets. You can see right here. Then these do turn into blue-black berries in the fall, and the plants turn pretty yellow. So it has a lot of interest throughout the season. It does not like the hot summers. It doesn't like to get dry and hot. So you have to keep it watered and moist. You can divide these in the fall, and it is a good plant that's pest and disease free. So here's a picture of my garden where I have the Solomon seal here. I have variated variety along with the spiderwort. I have two different varieties of that, the dark purple and the light purple. And then I also have some white beard tongue that goes in with that. And this is just another angle of that bed. We didn't talk about hydrangeas. That's a whole nother topic, but this is the woodland hydrangea that does bloom white early June timeframe. And I just think that the white hydrangea with the white variated Solomon seal and the white beard tongue is a pretty look. Okay, so I'm pretty much done. I am done talking about the individual flowers. This is a chart that I created for my garden that is a good planning tool and also helps you see what do I have growing, what do I need to grow, what areas do I want to fill in. So on the first column, I have the plant that I have. S means shade. PS means part shade, what kind of light that it's receiving. Then I have my beds numbered. I just kind of took and used only the shade beds here, but bed 5, bed 6, bed 7. And then when does it bloom? And then the color that I have in here is the color that plant blooms. So the wild ginger, like shade, it's in bed 5. It blooms March through April, and the flower is that deep burgundy color. My native columbine is blooming in April, and so forth. Green and gold is yellow, the foam flower, lightish pink color. And so a lot of times you'll see on tags, whatever, that this plant's going to bloom at this time. And I just like to know exactly when it's going to bloom in my yard. It might be different. I might have different conditions and it might bloom at different times. And then I kind of check back each year and I kind of update to see if it's changing, if the bloom times are changing, if something happens and I lose a plant, or of course I can always just insert a line for adding plants. So I like this tool. It gives me a quick glance of what I have and when they're blooming and when I can expect what my flower bed's going to look like in any particular month of the year. So now that I hope I have your interest piqued in getting out there and getting some more plants or creating your shade garden. Next Saturday, the Master Gardeners of Hamilton County are going to have their Fall Garden Festival. It's going to be at the AG Center on 6183 Adamson Circle. We're going to have 12 vendors. Many of those will be selling plants. One of the vendors will be Reflection Writing, and they'll be bringing many native plants along with several other landscapers and plant sellers. We're going to have, in addition to that, 19 demonstrations that will be put on by our Master Gardeners. So I hope that you can attend that. Other sources for shade plants, I want to shout out to Bethlehem Gardens in Dalton, Georgia. Ruby is a world, she has knowledge. If you have any questions on hostas, ferns, cucurcha, she is the person to go to. Natalie at Silver's Albert Nursery in Cisco, Georgia, another person who is well-versed in hosta, and she also is selling native azaleas, several of those that we talked about today. Reflection Writing and Nature Center, their plant sales are ongoing. They're open every Tuesday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. You could just go there and see their plants. They also have their plant list online. They're, like I said, they're going to be with us next Saturday at the AG Center. Bees on a Bicycle, they have both native plants and hostas and other type of plants like that. And then the Wild Ones, which is a native plant organization here in Chattanooga, they're going to have their plant sale on Saturday, October 2nd at Grace Episcopal Church parking lot on Belvoir Avenue from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So there's many opportunities to get some plants for your garden for this fall. Happy shade gardening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody on mute. Let's give Fran a round of applause. So, thanks. That was great. And yeah, the bloom chart was a big hit. Any questions? You feel free to unmute if you had any questions you haven't put in the chat box, or just let's talk shade. Let's talk shade for a few minutes. A few more minutes to go. So if anybody wants to chat, feel free.
You know, I have touched on a very small percentage of what's out there for shade gardening. There's so many plants to explore and experiment with. We didn't touch on hydrangeas and many other bushes and flowers. It's just there's a whole world out there of shade gardening.
How did you get your chart? I mean, was that something? I mean, what did you use? I guess to find it.
I used Excel. It's an Excel. I just use Excel spreadsheet, but you could do it on graph paper. You could do it. You could even do it using, you know, a word chart. You could use different ways.
I'm not very good at computers, so I may try just to do it on paper.
Yeah, graph paper would work too.
Yeah.
I learned about this at a Wild One symposium about 4 years ago, and I liked the idea. So I'm kind of a organizer freak.
I'm a lot more ground cover, because when my vegetable garden comes in, my flower beds are full of weeds now. I can't keep it up. I can do good and get it early spring, but I want more ground cover for sure.
Yeah, there's some great ground covers out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it helps. For those who are here who are master gardeners on a different, the signups for the fall festival have just been posted on to the master gardener email list. So when you're logged out of this presentation, go to the signups and sign up to volunteer. There are plenty of opportunities, but while we're talking shade, this is now on Facebook. So take down our Facebook address and you can watch this again if there's something you want to see, if you want to study Fran's chart, and or look at some plants that you know, just to refresh your memory, or just go there. And then we have last month we had container gardening for water plants, and we've had native plants. We've had a class on African violets. So just keep scrolling down the timeline and you'll get to all of them. Is there anything else? Does anybody have any other questions or thoughts? Mm-hmm.
This is Maggie.
Hi.
I'm the one with the hard packed soil. I'm up in Birchwood. I feel like I have so many areas that are so hard packed, even under the trees lining our driveway. Should I just like bring in a bunch of compost now, so in spring the soil will be in better condition?
I think so. I think no. I mean, I don't think that you should wait. definitely. I mean,
Yeah, I feel like
and
I need a whole
do you have
truckload.
leaves too to put on top of that? Or
I
do you have a
will
lot of
once
trees
it's-
that leaves will fall and
Yeah, I'll have
so
to
you don't,
break
don't
them
rake
up
up.
and let my husband mulch them like I did
Yeah,
before.
exactly. Don't put them in bags. Just
Yeah.
mulch them up.
We
Uh,
have Bradford pears lining our driveway. I mean, they were here when we bought the house, and the roots are so exposed from the soil washing away. So I feel like we need to do some terracing, and then, I don't want to cover the roots all up, but build up the soil
Yeah,
around it. So I can
it would
do
be
some
good if
composting.
you could get rid of those Bradford pears.
I'd love to.
Yeah, maybe they'll fall down.
There's so many other great trees you could put in there.
I know they're huge. I need to get an arborist to come trim them.
Crazy. Yeah, and they only look good for like 2 days
Yeah.
of the year. I mean, you know, well, yeah.
I was going to tell her that do somehow put cardboard and stuff underneath his trees to build the soil up. I didn't really get all the details for him, but he has a lot of stuff under there, and he used a lot of cardboard and let it decay and put dirt on top of it and plant his plants right into it.
Yes, he did. Yeah, that's right. He created almost like a bed area by just putting down the cardboard and then putting the compost on top of that and then letting it decay. So you might want to, and of course it sounds like you need to create some kind of something so that it doesn't all wash off into your driveway. Just bury the roots and see if you can speed their demise.
Yeah, that's right. I was thinking that.
Maybe you want to do a volcano around them. Roo. So you're a good girl. Come here. Any other questions or thoughts?
I saw a question on voles. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about them.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't know anything about them. I know there's a lot of traps and things, but I don't know.
Yeah. People also were bothered by chipmunks down here, and I haven't been bothered by them. But then I haven't tried to plant any bulbs either.
Yeah.
Do you have any like little bulbs in your or is any of those plants bulb oriented, or do you have like little species crocuses or?
I do have some daffodils. I do grow daffodils.
How deep were you able to dig them in? Given our soil.
Yeah, well, my soil is pretty good. So I've been using this, I've been composting for a long time. So they're fine. I mean, I even put some out in the woods here and there. I just like that. It's a northern in me coming out. I just like that daffodil, early spring daffodil look.
Right. No, I'm with you there. So how long? So when you got to your place, when you got to your current place home here in Chattanooga, it was, what we all have, which is basically concrete. Was it pretty hard? How long did it take you between the compost and everything to get it to be kind of more woodlandy?
Well, my house is sit at smack dab in woods. The property that we purchased was all woods. Wasn't all woods. With the houses, it was grassy, and that's where the deer used to lay down. So, but the ground did have chert. We're on a limestone. We were kind of concerned about even being able to put a basement in, but they had to come in and use a big machine to dig that hole through the limestone. So we had this heavy chert. So we brought dirt in and then terraces, and then fill those terraces with good dirt and mulch and compost. And so it took a few years. I'm still adding. This year, this spring, I added more. I add all the time. I'm constantly adding.
Right, because it does wear down after a while.
Yeah.
That's it. Both of us coming from the north where the soil was wonderful.
Yeah, it was kind of
It's quite a shock to come
shock.
down here.
Yeah.
What part of
I
town
had.
do you live in, Fran?
I live close to the Red Bank High School.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think it's transplants have a hard time, or it's a learning curve
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, when I came down here, what I thought I'd have to deal with was just warmer weather in general. It never occurred to me that there was this big difference in soil. But that's what the master gardeners taught me.
That's right.
So, all right, are we plumbed all of Fran's knowledge?
Not much left.
And as I said, you can watch it again on Facebook and take down the names of the places, and do come to the fall festival and next Saturday, and in October on the whatever. Well, let me quickly look and see what that date is. It's the October 16th. We will have a class on orchids, and our speaker will be zooming in from Alaska. So
Wow.
that should be interesting. And then in November we have our wreath class, our wreath making class. I'm assuming it'll still be over Zoom, so we'll send out instructions or what people can gather together if you want to build your wreath along with Carol and her assistants, or if you want to just watch and get ideas. Also at the Fall Festival, we'll have a exhibit with Master Gardener made yard art, and we'll have a little demo on how you can take things around your house, plant life and other nature things, and create something of your own. So along with the plant sales and the demos, we'll have all of that. So I think that's all from me. If everybody would like to unmute and say goodbye to each other and thank Fran one more time.
Wonderful, and I enjoyed it so much.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you.
Bye.
See
Really
everybody.
enjoyed it.
Bye. Bye.
So
Thank you.
long. Thanks a lot, everybody. See you next month.
Okay.
Okay, Suzanne, do your thing with a video.
I will do. Oh yeah, let me turn it off. This is a good idea. Where is it? Stop recording. Okay. And yeah, we did. That was good.
Thanks.
Great. Good job.
Thank you. Okay, go do your time video.
I'll do my top video right now, and then I have to go pick up flyers with Carlton.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
see ya.
Bye.
Bye.